What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the No Fun League. Today we will be talking about Wildcard Weekend, everything that happened. We'll be talking about the games, good performances, bad performances, and we'll be talking about one thing each eliminated team should do this offseason to go further in the playoffs next season. Starting off with the first game of the week, Chargers-Texans. Now, I had the Chargers winning this game. I thought that the run game and their defense, the way they were playing, gave them a slight advantage. Houston did not look great in their last few games, which, I'll admit I was wrong. They looked phenomenal in this game. The most complete game that they played all season, with the offense and defense coming together in a phenomenal fashion. Justin Herbert had a very bad playoff game. 4 interceptions after throwing 3 all season. Now, I love Justin Herbert, but I think it is time to talk about his playoff performances, which I think in part are, you have one good quarterback and one good wide receiver in Ladd McConkey. But Justin Herbert, 2 bad playoff games to start off his career. It can get turned around, but that will be his reputation for at least the offseason. CJ Stroud was not phenomenal per his standards. He wasn't even good per his standards, but he avoided turnovers, bad mistakes, and the play that he made in the second quarter where the ball got dropped, he scrambles to his right and then just yeets it down the field. That turned the tide for the Houston Texans and gave them the momentum that they needed to capture the lead for the first time, because they hadn't even scored yet at that point. So he did make one of the most important plays of the game. Houston had their best rushing game in like 2 months. Joe Mixon went above 100 yards after not going above 60 for like the last 2 months of the season. So they were able to get that turned around at the right time as well. And my player of the game is not CJ Stroud. It's not Joe Mixon. It is Kamari Lassiter, the lesser known of their cornerback duo, because Derek Stingley was a top 5 pick. Kamari Lassiter was targeted twice on Saturday against the Chargers. He forced an incompletion, and he had an interception at the 10-yard line to stop a scoring drive. Kamari Lassiter played a great game. He is my player of the game. He is absolutely locked down. The Texans have a lockdown corner duo. They also have a great pass rushing duo. That defense is going to be great for years to come. Well, like I said, no one on the Chargers defense. We talked about this in the preview podcast as well. The Chargers defense, as a sum of its parts, played really well all season. They even had really good moments in this game. However, no one in their cornerback room could cover Nico Collins. And I said that if the Texans offensive line gives CJ Stroud enough time, Nico Collins will kill the Chargers. And that's what happened. The Chargers, their one need this offseason, the thing that I think that they need to do, is invest in defense. Dylan Hanley is a really good linebacker. You still got Joey Bosa and Dervin James. Outside of that, there's nothing really inspiring on this defense. There are some really good young players. However, guys like Khalil Mack, who you've relied heavily upon the last few years, like Khalil Mack is contemplating retirement. Some other players are getting older. Some are just, quite frankly, not great. Invest in defense. Go get DJ Reed in free agency. Draft an edge rusher or interior D lineman in the draft. A guy like Chris Jenkins, or not Chris Jenkins, a guy like Mason Graham, if the Chargers can somehow trade up to get him or anything like that, former Michigan guy, I think that would be phenomenal. But you got to invest in defense. And Quentin Johnston, another guy who had a great season, turned it around. Given how his rookie season went, he had a really good second season. The confidence that Harbaugh and the offense placed in him was paid off. But in this game, Herbert targeted him 5 times. Quentin Johnston had 0 catches. So Quentin Johnston, just get on the jugs machine, dude, in the offseason. Just like 3 hours a day, whether you're on vacation or doing something else, just get on the jugs machine and focus on catching the football, because you're an athletic freak. But catch the football, otherwise nothing else matters. And if you want your career to stay positive in the NFL, you got to catch the football. So that's that game. It was a blowout. It was boring. 5 out of the 6 games were really boring this weekend, unfortunately. But the Texans win. They move on. Their prize for winning a wild card game, they have to go to Kansas City and play the Chiefs, which is not fun for anybody. I think with the way that this defense played, they have a shot at limiting the Kansas City offense because it hasn't been great all season, but it is the Chiefs in the playoffs, and they are usually extremely locked in. Moving on to the Saturday night game, Steelers-Ravens. Ravens win 28-14. Like I said, it's surprising for a Tomlin team to not cover in a division rivalry playoff game. It happened. This team just isn't that great. Quick question. How did no one want Derrick Henry last season? Like, how? Like, I am legitimately flabbergasted that no team wanted this man. The Ravens signed him on a $8 million a year contract for 2 seasons. And I get that he's a 31-year-old running back who takes a lot of punishment with the way he runs, but he is phenomenal. The Baltimore Ravens put up 299 rushing yards on the Pittsburgh defense. The Pittsburgh offense, coincidentally, had 29 rushing yards, literally 10% of what the Ravens did. The Lamar Jackson, 15 carries, 81 yards. My main question with him is he going to be running it 15 times a game or, 10 to 15 times a game going forward against Buffalo and if they move on against the Chiefs or whoever else? Because this offense with him running the ball efficiently, Derrick Henry running it efficiently, and once Leif Fowlers comes back, them also being able to throw the ball, this offense has reached like the peak of Lamar Jackson. Is at his peak right now, in my opinion. And this offense is at its peak with the sum of its parts. The offensive line is playing well. Lamar Jackson was 7 for 9, 42 yards and a touchdown under pressure, which he has struggled with in the past. Remember in that famous Titans game when the Baltimore Ravens were the number 1 seed, they just blitzed him the entire game, and he struggled mightily. He was also 15 for 19 for 2 touchdowns on straight dropback players, no play action, no screens, nothing like that, just dropping back and throwing the ball. He has gotten so much better at it. He is such a good passer now that it's just like the complete metamorphosis. And I think Lamar Jackson's bad in the playoffs. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think more so it was the Greg Roman offense. And Greg Roman, coincidentally, the LA Chargers, Greg Roman's the offensive coordinator. They did not have a great game. They didn't really have a great game plan either. So I think it's more so that. I think with Todd Monken in the second year, with Zay Flowers getting better, Derrick Henry there, this offense is so good, and Lamar Jackson is playing extremely, extremely well. He deserves he's going to get his 3rd MVP in about 3 weeks. Russell Wilson did not have a bad game. Russell Wilson went 20 for 29, 270 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no picks. He had played a very good game. He kept them in it, especially in the second half. Now, basically garbage time at that point because they were down 21-0. But he gave them a decent shot to try to do something if the defense could get stops. But sadly, the defense could not get any stops, even though, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick could not get any stops, could not stop the Baltimore run game. And I think the one thing that the Steelers need to do, not fire Mike Tomlin, not trade Mike Tomlin, not move on from Mike Tomlin. I don't think that's the answer. I think that the reason why this team has always been successful with guys like Duck Hodges playing quarterback at times, Mason Rudolph, other random guys, is because of the culture that Mike Tomlin's built and the atmosphere that he's built. So I don't think that you should move on from Mike Tomlin. However, I think they do need to move on from Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator, especially because right now you guys have people like Lou Anarumo, Rob Saleh, even Jimmy Lake from Atlanta. Really good defensive play callers and really good defensive minds are available. You never know how available, like what the talent pool will look like next year or the year after. And I don't think Terrell Austin did a great job this season and deserves to keep his job. I just personally don't think so. I think the Steelers defense, given how many good players it has, underperformed very heavily. And yes, the offense isn't great. Yes, they put up 29 yards of rushing. They need to work on that as well. But they have a lot of young guys on the offensive line. Some of them were hurt for most of the season. I think the offensive side of the ball will be okay. And I think Russell Wilson is a guy that they should probably bring back next season because he can manage the game. He doesn't really make big mistakes, and his deep ball is still very good. But the defense just needs to be better given the talent that it has. You probably have the best defensive player in the NFL, if not one of the 3 best players in the NFL. So you have to be better, and I think Terrell Austin needs to go. I don't think he's done a good enough job to keep it. Player of the game, obviously Derrick Henry, absolutely killed them. Moving on to Sunday's slate. Broncos-Bills. The Bills win 31-7. It looked a little shaky at first. At the end of the first quarter, the Broncos were winning 7-3. The opening drive had a beautiful touchdown pass from Bo Nix to Troy Franklin. They held the Bills to a field goal on their next drive, and then no one scored. And then starting from the start of the second quarter, the Buffalo Bills would go on to score 28 straight. Josh Allen, 20 of 26, 76% completion, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had 8 carries for 46 yards. James Cook, 23 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. Great game from the two of them. And then defensively for Buffalo, Von Miller had a 31% win rate according to PFF. Had a great game. It was the second best win rate on the team. Did his job as the go-to pass rusher on money downs. And, the young Denver defense, Pat Surtain and them, were talking about how it's not Von Miller's time anymore. And he let them know that he's still very good at football, even though he's getting older in age. Another, similarly to Houston and Baltimore, it wasn't like the offense carried or the defense went lockdown. Complete team win for Buffalo. They looked like a very complete football team. The Broncos, for a team that no one thought would make the playoffs at the start of the season, rookie quarterback, young team, they played well. The score doesn't reflect it. Josh Allen was sacked 13 times all season. That's less than 1 sack per game. The Broncos sacked him 3 times. They led the league in sacks. They have a very good pass rush. Zach Allen had a phenomenal season. They cooked. Bo Nix, 13 for 22, 144 yards and a touchdown. Also led the team in rushing with 43 yards. Completion percentage, not what we're accustomed to for him. And obviously the offense looked clunky. The Bills are good defensively. The Bills had a good game plan for him. But I think this is something to build off of. I think this offseason they should invest in a running back, whether it's signing one in free agency, a guy like Aaron Jones or Najee Harris, or maybe they're the team that Ashton Gianti goes to. But I think they need to draft a running back because I don't think Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, I don't think they cut it. Audric Estime had a good rookie season. He was out this game, and I think that hurt that offense. But I think a star running back would really, really help this team. Player of the game, Josh Allen, and Ravens-Bills will obviously be a ridiculously good football game. Moving on to Packers-Eagles. The Eagles win 22-10. The Packers just had too many injuries. Christian Watson was already out going into the game. And then on the first drive on offense, you lose Elgton Jenkins, your best offensive lineman. Then you proceed to lose Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and Josh Jacobs to injury throughout the game. And you were shuffling linemen in and out. Just not great. Also, Jordan Love coming off of the injury that he suffered against Chicago last week. Looked very rusty, did not play very well. Eagles defense had a good game overall. They had some bad moments, they had some good moments, but they held their own. They only let up 10 points. Jalen Hurts looked pretty rusty on offense as well, but he did not make the mistake to blow the game, whereas Jordan Love, also rusty, also coming off of an injury, threw 3 picks. Saquon Barkley cooked, had a great game. 25 carries for 119 yards, no touchdowns. Very happy for him. Think that he is the engine that keeps this Eagles team running right now. I don't think that, if anything happens to Saquon Barkley, I think this team's season is done because I just don't think that, and Eagles fans, I like Jalen Hurts as a person. I like him as a quarterback. He is a good football player. However, you see a guy like Jaden Daniels who is in your division, and you see the way that he played football on Sunday night, you cannot tell me that Jalen Hurts is that good, or that Jalen Hurts has ever carried the Eagles in that fashion in a playoff game. Yes, he played insanely well against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. He also dropped the ball with no one around him and gave the Chiefs a free 7 points when they had zero momentum going for them, and they lost the game by 3. You can complain about James Bradbury all you want. You can say, if Jalen gets the ball back with enough time, I think they win. However, he dropped the ball with no one around him. He cost his team that game. The defense led up 38 points, the defense led up 31. The defense led up less points than the Eagles' offense scored in that game. However, Jalen Hurts gave Kansas City a free 7 points because he dropped the football with no one around him. There's a reason why he gets criticism, because he's not He gets paid like a top 5 quarterback, but he has not played like one. He's getting carried by a very good offensive line, a very good run game, and a very good defense. Jalen Hurts is not putting this team over the top. This team is putting Jalen Hurts over the top, which is fine. You're winning games. But you're going to get criticism as a quarterback if under pressure, you're 2 for 8 for 19 yards in a playoff game. Because trust me, when you play Detroit, when you play even the Rams with their young defense, they are going to get you under pressure. And Jalen Hurts, if you go 2 for 8 for 19 yards under pressure again, your team is probably going to lose. Unless Saquon Barkley has a Saquon Barkley game. But Jalen Hurts is not playing well enough right now to win this team a Super Bowl. This team is playing well enough. Jalen Hurts isn't. And at some point, he's going to have to. And I think he can. He just hasn't in 2 years. Last season and this season, he just hasn't played that well. Josh Jacobs was the only bright spot for the Packers on offense. 81 yards, a touchdown, also fumbled. I don't know what it is with the Green Bay Packers and fumbling in playoff games, because 2012 they play the Giants at a number 1 seed. Divisional round, the Giants go into Lambeau to play. They fumbled like 4 times. In the game against the Packers in the snow at Lambeau a few years ago, not the last season that Aaron had in Green Bay, but the last playoff game that Aaron had as a Packer, Mercedes Lewis fumbled the ball when the Packers offense was humming. I don't know what it is, but they fumble the ball constantly in the playoffs to lose games. And like I said, Quentin Johnson should be on the jugs machine. The Packers should just practice holding on to the football before a playoff game. I said Saquon Barkley had a great game. After Elgton Jenkins got hurt, the Eagles' defensive line started getting a lot of pressure on Jordan Love, which obviously helped them out. He finished 20 of 33, 212 yards and 3 picks. Not a good game. For the Packers, you need to get a wide receiver 1 this offseason. You have an excellent group of wide receiver 2s. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Excellent. You got to go get a wide receiver 1. Again, whether it's in the draft, whether it's signing T. Higgins. You got to go get Jordan Love a wide receiver 1. Otherwise, this offense is not feasible the way that it's currently going. And Quinyon Mitchell on defense, I want to shout him out for the Eagles. 2 catches for 10 yards on 6 targets and an interception. Phenomenal rookie, phenomenal first playoff game for him. Played his ass off. Player of the game is obviously Saquon Barkley. Quinyon Mitchell is a phenomenal cornerback. Howie Roseman cooked again. Moving on to the best game of the weekend, the only good game of the weekend, quite honestly. Commanders-Bucks. The Commies win 23-20. Best game, like I said, best game of wildcard weekend. Jaden Daniels might be the greatest rookie quarterback in NFL history. Not only did he have a phenomenal season carrying this team, because I'm sorry, the offensive line isn't good enough, the run game isn't good enough, you have 1 great receiver and a couple of nobody receivers, and the defense wasn't good enough for most of the season. Jaden Daniels carried this team in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts could learn. Tampa Bay moved the ball really well, but could not finish. They kept coming up with asinine ways to fuck things up. They fumble where Baker ran into Jalen McMillan, and that handoff was weird. And then on 3rd and 1 on their last drive of the game, when Bucky Irving and him were confused on what was happening. Just a couple of miscues like that, which are undefendable in the playoffs. Like you gotta have that type of stuff on lock. That's what lost them this game, because otherwise they were moving the ball with ease. Bucky Irving had a great game running the football. Mike Evans had 7 catches on 7 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown. No one else on the Bucs offense had more than 2 catches. Not having Chris Godwin hurt deeply in this game. I think if they have Chris Godwin, they have 2 really good receivers that no one on the Commanders can cover. They win, but alas, you can't really control that. Jaden Daniels, 24 of 35, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, 13 carries for 36 yards. It led the team in rushing. He was 7 for 12 for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns under pressure. That is a bona fide franchise quarterback and clutch as hell. That final drive, the last play of the game to set up the field goal. Literally, Kalijah Kancey just had to tackle him, and Jaden got out of there somehow and forced the first down. Terry McLaurin, 7 catches, 89 yards, touchdown. Diami Brown, career game in the playoffs, 5 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Bobby Wagner had a phenomenal game at linebacker for them. Washington held the ball for 35 minutes. Insane, because Tampa Bay was the team that everybody thought would have the ball for a long time because they're slower, more methodical. Washington runs plays very quickly in a college style with Cliff Kingsbury. Phenomenal. Jaden Daniels, player of the game. And I think that Washington will obviously have a preview podcast on Friday, but Washington is going to give Detroit a run for their money with the way that they're playing right now. And the Bucks fire Todd Bowles. He does nothing to benefit this football team. The defense sucked, even though you have Vita Vea, Levante David, Antoine Winfield, Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby. You have good players on defense. They were bad all season. Todd Bowles does nothing. Fire him, hire Liam Cohen as your head coach before he takes a job elsewhere, because he has revitalized Baker Mayfield's career, and those two should stick together for as long as they're there in Tampa Bay. Because Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal season as well, played pretty well in this game. Liam Cohen, great pairing with Baker Mayfield. You have a lot of good offensive weapons. Once again, like I said with the Steelers, there's a lot of good defensive play callers available right now in the NFL. And most of them are not going to get head coaching jobs because everybody wants an offensive coach. So hire Liam Cohen, hire a good DC, and go win the division again because everybody else in the NFC South kind of sucks. Last game of the week, Vikings-Rams. Rams win 27-9. The Vikings lose to the same two teams twice this season. They beat everybody else. And someone made this point on Instagram where the Vikings and Packers both benefited heavily from playing the AFC South. 4 wins for both teams because of how bad the AFC South was. But I think also what we have to take into account is with the horrific things that are happening in LA right now with the wildfires, and once again, prayers up to everybody. But with that, the Rams are playing for something bigger than themselves right now. Like, quite frankly. Like, you could see the emotion in the game. Like, there's sometimes, usually I'm not a proponent of the national anthem being sung before sporting events, because we're the only country that really does it, and it's kind of weird for the most part, unless you're getting a B2 flying over in the Rose Bowl. But there's some moments where it just hits different, and yesterday it hit different for the Rams. Andrew Whitworth came out before the game, gave a little speech. You have these Rams fans that are in Arizona. The Rams are in Arizona for what was supposed to be their home playoff game because of the wildfires. And you're just like, when a team is collectively playing for a bigger purpose than themselves, it just matters more to them, even though it's a playoff game, even though their season's on the line. And they showed that yesterday, and they put up a immaculate performance for the city of LA, which was really awesome to see. Matt Stafford, 19 for 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. I told y'all in the preview, Matt Stafford, if you get vintage Stafford in a playoff game, the Rams are very, very hard to beat. Matt Stafford is phenomenal. Vikings offense, I think, got figured out by these two teams, and I think it helps that Aaron Glenn is a great DC, and they have the personnel, but also the Rams know what Kevin O'Connell's offense is going to do because Sean McVay taught Kevin O'Connell almost everything he knows. Kevin O'Connell is Sean McVay's disciple in Minnesota. He is part of the coaching tree. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal defensive game plan from the Rams. Sam Darnold played decent. 25 of 40, 245 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Obviously, that's a little bit above 50% completion. You do have the turnover. But I think overall as a whole, the Vikings offense struggled, not just Darnold. And unlike the Detroit game, where it was very evident that Sam Darnold was the reason that they were losing, I think in this game, it's more so the defense did not really have a good game plan against Stafford. And I think the Vikings offense as a whole really struggled. And I think the biggest reason for that is stemming from the Christian Darrisaw injury earlier this season. Yes, they traded for Cam Robinson, and he was like a decent stopgap, but I don't think the line ever fully recovered, especially the guards. A lot of pressure inside on Darnold, which is what he struggles with, and I think the offensive line needs to be improved this offseason. I think that's my one recommendation to them, improve the offensive line. I want to shout out Darius Williams on the LA defense. He led up 5 catches on 10 targets, 41 yards allowed, locked down Jordan Addison completely, and the one target that Justin Jefferson had when Darius Williams was in coverage, he did not catch. And what's also encouraging for the Rams offense is that the Rams wide receivers did not have great games. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp combined for 54 yards. Tyler Higbee had 5 catches for 58 yards before getting hurt. He had to go to the hospital just to make sure everything was good, but Sean McVay said that he is in stable condition, so hopefully he can play next week against the Eagles. Kyron Williams, 76 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. Consistent rushing attack for the Rams obviously helps in a game like this. Player of the game for me is still Matthew Stafford. Yeah, it's not like a 400, 500-yard game that we've seen from him in the past, but he made all the plays offensively that they needed to beat the Vikings. And the Vikings have a great defense. Brian Flores is one of the best and most frustrating defensive coordinators in the NFL, and Matt Stafford had him figured out all game. He's my player of the game. Thank you guys for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Like I said, there will be new content out every single day. Peace.